What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one armed madman, and back with me today we've got Michael Storm. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you. You know,
Brother, it's always good to be with you.
gotta have a tech issue to start it off. You know, nothing can just go smooth on the internet, and yeah, it's just the life of
Well,
a
that
podcaster,
comes with
right?
using free tools too.
Yeah, no shit, right? So, how?
Yeah, I try to do this thing as cheap. It's funny because I'm in a lot of these groups on the social media where they're talking about, who to talk to and what to do, and they're asking each other for help and how do I start my podcast? And oh, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know what I'd talk about. And I think, wow, you're really behind the ball. You have no place to go. Only up from there.
Yeah,
But they're always talking about spending money with these companies and
yep,
spending money on this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, man, I've been doing this stuff for well, since about 2011, and I've been doing it for free. I've
yeah,
never spent any money. I've never paid anybody to use any of these tools. My website, that's it. My website hosting, and that's where I host my RSS feed. But
yep,
yeah, I hear people talking about, oh, this platform and that platform and distributing to this, and I don't know why I can't get on this and why I can't do that. And I said, because you're not doing it yourself.
yep.
If you're doing it yourself, you're on everything. You're on whatever you want to be. You're not waiting around for somebody else to decide it for you. Hell, I was on Odyssey for a while, and Odyssey is by invitation only. They eventually cut all of their external podcasts off, and so nobody's on there anymore unless unless it's their product, I guess, is what they're doing these days. But yeah, you can't. That's why I say you can't cancel me, man, because I do
Yeah,
this thing. I do the whole thing myself.
yep.
I go out there, I find the tools. The computer already does most of the work. You just got to get sort of a couple of tools here and there to maybe talk to it or get
Yep.
it to copy whatever it is that you're doing. So,
I
yeah,
I tell
absolutely, man.
people my podcast runs on an iPad, an iPhone, and a computer and a mic. That's it. You know? I
Yeah.
use I don't even use my computer for anything else. I just use it for the podcast. I use my iPhone as a camera because there's like some app you can download and use your iPhone as a camera, so I do that. And then I do all the editing and all that shit on my iPad. It's fairly simple, you know. It's a pretty bare bones operation, man. I get people telling me that a lot too. Oh, I want to start a podcast, and right away I know if it's kind of like when I was a bartender, I would get tons of people coming into the bar with resumes, and typically like people lie on resumes. It's not just in bars, but like very much in bars, people lie on resumes. Oh, I've bartended before. And I can tell within like 5 seconds if you've actually bartended, if you've got what it takes. And like sometimes, you know, you'll get somebody who's waited tables and is going to apply as a bartender just because. And like that's not the end of the world. Like sometimes I would rather teach somebody that doesn't have bad habits rather than like try and break a bunch of bad habits. But, anyways, when it comes to podcasting, like
Oh, yeah.
we both use this site called Podmatch, which is where we met on, and like you get people to come on and they're hawking books or whatever they're trying to sell, you know. And some of these people will tell me they want to start a podcast, and it's right away like I don't want to be rude, but it's like you don't have what it takes. Like I've talked to you for 5 seconds, and I already know. Like I'm sure you've ran into this too, but there's nothing worse than when you have somebody come on your show and they blow their wad in like 5 minutes and like they're done, you know, talking about what they had to talk about. I had a guy on recently where he did that. He blew his wad in like 5 minutes and was like, "Ah, shit, I gotta carry the next 55 minutes of the show." And then after the show, he's like, "Hey, I've got a this other subject that I wanted to talk about, but we never really got to it." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, can we do it again? And I can talk about this." And I'm like, "All right, maybe I didn't like give him the space to you know, explain what he was wanted to talk about in this, so I'll give him another shot." And again, like we come on and he's basically he gets rid of it and he's done in 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's like he had 2 sentences prepared and it's like, "Come on, man." Like if you want to come on a show like this, like you have to be able to sell yourself. You have to be able to talk. Like you can't just be some introvert. So it's always nice when you're on air with like another person who can like carry a conversation and you can just kind of as a host you can kind of just sit back and let them go and take it in the direction that they want it to. Like, that's always nice, and that's always a great thing about talking with you is I don't have to plan anything. I don't have to have like, I've got a couple notes that I wrote down just in case, like, we, need something to talk about, but for the most part, like, I can just let you go, you know?
Yeah, yeah, we can have the conversation, and we become, friends over
Yeah.
the years that we've been doing this now. And yeah, I love that pod match, and I have the same experience with it. Knock on wood, it's gone really well, and
Yeah, me too.
I've never really had someone that couldn't, at least follow my lead. I
Yeah.
can drag them along in the conversation. That's never really happened. So knock on wood, that
Yeah.
doesn't happen. I assume that most of these people, when they're putting themselves out there, are prepared to talk about their things. But you would be surprised, having done this as many years as I have. It still blows my mind when somebody is not prepared to talk about their thing, but they're willing to talk about it. As if
Mhm.
that doesn't I'm not your practice zone for that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
I'm here to have the conversation and probably have it pretty quickly. You better be able to keep up.
Mhm. Yeah, and, like, if you're selling a book, for instance, like, I interview a lot of authors, I'm sure you do as well.
A
Like,
lot of the guys are on there, yeah.
sometimes you're doing yourself a disservice by doing a
Mhm.
podcast. If you're an introvert and you can't carry a conversation and you're not prepared to talk for at least a half an hour and you don't have like it's amazing to me that a lot of these people will do a lot of podcasts and they don't have
Mhm.
like a thing, where they can just kind of if cuz I don't do like, I'm sure you don't either. I don't do like question sheets or like any pre-interviews or anything like I just want to hear it natural, come out of your mouth, sell
Yeah.
me your book. And by
Yeah,
the
tell
end,
me
it's
about it.
like
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, dude, you've done yourself a disservice on this podcast because maybe you had a cool idea for a book. Maybe your book is really good. I don't really know. But you personally did not sell it. You didn't sell
Yeah.
yourself. And like a lot of times that's your job on a show like this is to sell yourself and to
Oh,
get people
absolutely. Yeah, and it's
interested in
probably the
you.
biggest thing that people we're going to find in this area, in this arena. It's probably the biggest problem that they have is being able to sell themselves and be able to present themselves and put
Yep.
themselves out there, and that makes perfect sense. I presume a lot of people who spend a lot of time writing books and reading books and having their face sort of buried in a typewriter or whatever probably don't have it in front of a micro. They're not spending time in front of a microphone. They're not talking about themselves. They're not probably a talker necessarily, not all the time. So it's funny because you'll get a lot of them that they want to do like a pre-interview or something
Yep.
like that, and that's to me is weird. I don't want to do a
Me
pre-interview. I want to
neither.
do an interview. I want
Yeah.
to have a conversation, whatever it is. We call it an interview, but it's not an interview because like yeah, I'm like you. I don't do any questions. I very rarely have a specific question. There might be something tongue in cheek or something that goes right to the heart of what it is they do, that I might directly ask. But you know how they on the Podmatch system where it lists the questions that I'm
Yep.
prepared to answer.
I don't ask any of those.
No, nope,
Because
none of
because
those.
somebody
And I
else's
don't think they're very good questions
no,
usually.
most of the time they're not, and, like, somebody else has already asked you those questions. I'm not
Yeah,
interested in
yeah.
doing the same podcast that you just did last week. Like, I wanna do something unique. I wanna, find what's interesting about you. I wanna pry it out of you if I have to, but for the most part, like, I want you to kind of give me the rope to figure out, like, where we should go with this, and, like, a lot of times, like, I've been pivoting a lot from, like, I'm not doing as many political interviews as I
Hmm.
used to. I'm
Same, same.
I'm I'm doing a lot more like science fiction and paranormal type of stuff because that's like where my true interest is. Like I still do some political stuff from time to time, but like I've just had to check out of it for the last like year because it's been
Yeah,
so bad, it's that's all I could say. It's been so bad that I
it's
just
bad.
can't get myself to like get bogged down in it every day like I used to. It's like watching a bad football game or something, I don't watch football anymore either, but, like, I've watched working as a bartender, I've watched a lot of bad football games where it's like, "Can you just be over?" Like, "Ugh, I can't watch this anymore. Can we change the channel? Please, can we change the channel?" But anyways.
Yeah, right. Can we just move on to something new? Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and it was never about the politics for me. It leans in that direction because I'd spent a lot of time just sort of blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, and it's kind of hard to talk to yourself about interesting, fun things. It's a lot easier to do that with academic and sort of let me teach you type of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really just at the beginning of this year I decided I'm switching my entire thing up because do the show for the network for Republic Broadcasting. I have a framework that I have to work within to make it fit on the show, but then there's all this other time, that I have that I can do things, and so I've started to just drop stuff as I see fit. Turn on the microphone, talk about the little thing, and it doesn't have to be 57 minutes long. It doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
whatever long to try to fit the format on the network, and so I'm making sure to get a couple of things during the week that fit those 2 hours for the network, but the rest of the time I'm just talking to people, and I'm not even doing as much commentary. I think out of this will be I don't know. I guess it'll be the 12th show coming up this weekend, 12th episode already of the year coming up this weekend, and uh, it's 2, maybe 3 hours, so maybe 25% of it is just me. The
Mhm.
rest of it is people.
Yeah.
And
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 it's
I'm trying to go people, just have the conversations, and I'll do my little thing differently from now on, where I talk about whatever.
yeah.
If I wanna do an anarchist audit of the free market, I think that's what I'm gonna do this weekend. If I wanna do that. It doesn't have to be 57 minutes long. It could be 30 minutes long, it could be an hour and a half, it could be whatever I want it to be,
Mhm.
because I'm not thinking of it in terms of I have to produce something for the network. Instead, gearing all of the interviews to those lengths so that I can just do 2 interviews, and you could tune into the show on the network, you could hear 2 different interviews,
Yeah.
and instead of me running my mouth.
And what I find, like, listening to I've never done, like, a solo show where I talk by myself. I've never really had the interest in doing that. It's a different muscle for sure.
It
Like, I'm
is.
sure I could do it, but it would take some practice, and I would probably have to do it a couple times before I felt comfortable publishing something, but it's one of those things where it just doesn't really interest me all that much, and, like, if I'm not interested, the audience isn't gonna be interested, and when it comes to, like, Putting a putting a time limit on the show is difficult because, like, I try and do a minimum of an hour when I have somebody on, but sometimes it goes an hour and a half, 2 hours if the conversation's good. I don't really go over that, but, um,
Yeah. No, it
like,
gets redundant.
it does,
Yeah.
and something that bothers me about other people's podcasts, especially in, like, the anarchist libertarian spheres, is, like, you get these people who I'm gonna sneeze, I think, who know a lot about the philosophy of anarchism or libertarianism, however you want to put it. And a lot of times they will have to fill an hour. And if you're doing multiple shows a week, it's like, okay, I've got a couple subjects that are in the news right now that I have to stretch out into an hour. When it's like 10 minutes is enough, I get the
Or
point
more
in
than
10.
enough.
Yeah, like, I get the point after 10 minutes. It's like, you don't have to keep stretching it out and coming up with other examples and beating a dead horse over this, subject just to kind of get more shows out there. And it's like, just give me the information, tell me how it relates to the subject of anarchism or free markets or whatever. And like, get it done quick and get it out and then move
Yeah,
on to
and I
something
think
else.
that I think I agree with you. Of course I do, but I think that's what I'm looking at doing myself with moving forward. It's because it's more directed.
Yeah.
It's more concise. It's not just a talk show, and that's what I've done for years. Just a talk show. Ultimately, I come in and I talk about the things I want to talk about. I provide some links, I have some anecdotes and some life experience and things like that, and it's all fine. But I feel like it's always a shotgun approach, and I never liked that. Even when I narrowed it down,
Mhm.
if you listen to me over the years, and I narrow it down and try to be more directed, and even then, it's too much because it's always about that making sure that that particular time slot is filled, as opposed to just saying what needs to be said. And I think that's just so much more important. I think it's better.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it through the lens of somebody who's I'm not a beginner in this sphere, but
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not an expert either. I'm not I'm not I don't read all of the literature. Like I just I kind of go with my gut, and I kind of like I always tell people that I've been an anarchist my entire life. I just didn't know it until I was 35 because I hadn't heard anything about the philosophy. I didn't really understand that what I was thinking about the world, about politics, about cops, about all these things that I had thoughts on that I just thought made me crazy. You know, like everybody else seems to be fine with all of this bullshit. Like, why is it that I have to have problems with it? I must just be nuts. And then I come across this literature, and I come across, people talking about it online, and it's like, "Oh, well, I this is what I've been my entire life." Like, I just didn't know it was a thing, essentially. And now that I know it's a thing, I know that I'm not only am I not crazy, but this is probably how we ought to behave in the first place, you know? I didn't really feel the need to go in and read all the literature because, like, why do you need to? I don't need to be convinced on this. This is something that I've felt and believed my entire life to my core, just didn't know how to express at the time because I thought that I was just weird, you know?
Yeah, I'm the same way in terms of the attitude. I'm the same person I was when I was 12 years old. I
Me too.
really, very
Yep.
much so, the same person. I don't have any particular different worldview than I did then. I was pretty well formed. I grew up with educated people around me, and I experienced different places and different people, and art and music, and so I think I had just a better. And reading, I read a lot, read a ton, and so I think I already was well ahead, but for entertainment, not for learning for entertainment.
Yeah.
And but that just expands the vocabulary, that expands the ideas that you're taking in from other people. You're seeing the world from somebody else's perspective, even if it's just for entertainment purposes. It's not about learning, it's about experiencing. And I think that that's what drives me in it, is that I have a lifetime of experience being this person that I am,
Mhm.
having called myself an anarchist since the time I was about 12 years old. It's either be about 12 or 13 when I remember seeing, oh, what's that A thing? Oh,
Yeah.
that's anarchy. That's it. Oh, well, that's interesting. Oh, okay, yeah. I think I can do that. I think I'm with that. And not really necessarily, like you said, not necessarily knowing the philosophy, and not really caring, because I think I get the basic
Yeah.
idea. I don't need somebody else. I never needed somebody else to tell me about life. So I don't need anybody else to tell me how to react to life. I
How to
don't need
think.
somebody to tell me how to behave with other people, how to treat other people. Well, I was raised in a Christian home, so I was raised with the Christian ideals in terms of you keep your hands to yourself, keep your hands off
Mhm.
other people and their property and things like that. These are really basic, simple concepts that are acceptable. They absolutely don't have anything to do with religion. They have to do with morality and how you
Mhm.
treat other people. And so I had a background in this already and already understood this. And then I started to learn about the state. And I think it was about 14 years old when I was told about Federal Reserve notes and about the Federal Reserve and about what happened in 1913 and Jekyll Island and just the capture of our monetary system and really the beginning of the end of America, as
Yeah.
far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
And you're lucky because you knew that money was fake
Yeah.
when you were 15 years old. Where, like, I grew up in the exact opposite type of household. Like, my parents were, they graduated high school, but they weren't educated. We weren't cultured. Like, we were into sports and dirt bike riding, and like we didn't pay attention to the world around us at all. And but what it did, one of the coolest things about racing dirt bikes is that people don't look at it as a family sport, but it's absolutely a family sport. So even though we didn't have like a religious background or a political background or a philosophical background, we had a tight family unit. Like, we had morals. And like as a kid, you're going to different dirt bike races, and it really teaches you how to be an adult quicker than like team sports in high school did. It teaches you that, like, hey, when I get out on the track, like, I'm on my own. Like, somebody can help me with the fundamentals and help me practice and point me in the right direction. But once that gate falls and you're out on the track, it's you and 39 other riders, and you got to figure it out by yourself without help from anybody. and it really teaches you like ingenuity. Okay, like how do I be methodical about getting by this guy instead of just like crashing into him. Like I've got to think something out. Okay, I'm a little quicker in this section. He's a little slower there. So if I set up here, for this section, I'm going to come out on the inside over here and I'll be able to blow right by the guy. And I think like those are good lessons in life as well. Like you're on your own in this life. Like you've got a family, you've got kids and a wife and that type of thing, but in the end, like you live and die on your own and you've got to figure things out for yourself. And you can't just depend on other people to tell you what to do for the rest of your life. It doesn't work. People, me as a kid, like I ended up getting into drugs and going off the rails in my 20s. And I had a bunch of people telling me that this was a bad move. I didn't listen because I had to figure it out on my own. You could read a ton of different books about addiction and you can watch I watched movies about it and everything, but you still kinda have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the things that goes along with the people that I was raised by were smart and were sort of wanted to be cultured. We were still just poor white trash,
Yeah.
but we still went to the opera and we still went to the symphony and we did those things. But being an only child and a child of a single mother, I was on my own. I'm the epitome of the Generation X latchkey kid from the time that I was sort of 9 years old, if not younger, on up through my mid-teens or so. I was alone every day after school, and I had to make my own time and do my own things, and I had to take care of myself. I had to know how to, go into the kitchen and make myself something to eat and not
Yeah.
burn the damn thing down, and that sort of thing. And so it's a huge independent streak, and I think that that's one of the things that's key for people who really uh, want to understand anarchism. If you don't already have that independent streak, if you're just a
Just not
follower,
gonna
you're a
take.
follower,
Yeah.
and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't want to lead the pack, that's fine. And you don't have to lead the pack. That's the thing that they miss. I think a lot of them, they just want to they think that because you have leadership skills and leadership qualities that you actually have to lead. No, you can lead yourself. You can lead your own little band. You can have your own little family. You can raise your own little healthy, happy people that hopefully go out in the world and spread happy and healthy ideas around. You don't have to be a part of this system. I never wanted to be. I never wanted to be a part of any systems or any controls. I just wanted to be me. And if other people wanted to come along for the ride, this includes my wife. Or any mate or anything like that that I would want to have. I remember distinctly from a young age thinking, you it's my ride. I'm driving and you're in the passenger seat and you're either coming along or you need to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the same way as a kid. Like I got home from school and I hopped on my BMX bike and I was in the subdivision, next to where we lived for until it was dark,
Until dark.
until
Yeah.
until it was
Yeah.
dark. Like I
Until
remember.
it was time for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember I was never into, like, video games growing up. I never got into them until I was in my 20s, really, and then that lasted for a couple years, and I was out. But, like, my friends got into video games at one point, and I remember just not being interested. They're playing Mario Kart for hours and hours, and I remember I was supposed to, like, spend the night at a friend's house for a birthday party or something like that, and they're just sitting there playing Mario Kart for like 6 hours straight, and I'm just bored out of my mind, and I finally just got up and left. And, like, 2 or 3 hours later, somebody, calls my house, and they're like, Where did he go? Is he gone? Like, what happened?" And my parents were like, "Oh, yeah, he left. He was bored. He thought, these guys are wasting their day playing video games, and he just decided to come home," you know? And that was just how I was. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and watch you guys play video games for 6 hours because that's what you wanna do. I'm gonna do what I wanna do. I'm gonna do what I think is fun. I'm not gonna waste my time on what other people think I ought to be doing, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the point, right? Even if you did like video games,
Yeah,
maybe it's not that video game. Man, I don't
yeah,
want to play Mario Kart. I was
yeah,
never a big fan of Mario Kart myself.
me neither.
I preferred Need for Speed personally.
Yeah,
Uh, Yeah, I went through all those phases, man. I'm sure I suppose any active male does, right? A male
Mhm.
that's actually out there in the world is going to go through all those phases. He's going to go through, oh, and what my friends are doing. Oh, that's kind of neat. Do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't want to hang out with that person anymore. I, I think it's just natural. And I think some of us are just more in tune to it and are really willing and able to accept it. You know, when I decide that I don't want to do this, I don't want to be around that person, I don't want to be in that space, I just get up and I walk out.
Yeah.
Eh,
School was the same way, man. I'm sure you were like me, and I was terrible in school because I wasn't interested in what they were talking
didn't care.
about. I had no respect for my teachers because I didn't think they deserved it. I thought they were just tools and, you're doing the same thing, and everybody would sit there and clap like seals, And God, my teachers hated me. I hated them. At one point, like I was saying, my parents weren't, on top of it. They were young when they had me. And at one point, it was like, I just want to go on homeschool and get out of this fucking place. It's just a nightmare. I can't stand it. Like, they hate me. I hate them. Why am I even here?
Mhm.
And I remember we went into the office and we're like, my parents were like, oh, we're going to put him on homeschool. And they're like, no, you can't do that. And my parents were like, "Well, we tried."
Uh,
And then looking back on it now, it's like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe they just let the school walk all over them like that, but they didn't know any better.
didn't know any
They were
better.
young and they thought that's what it was. And then, like looking back on it now, knowing what I know, they didn't want me there. They didn't give a shit about me. They cared about the money that they got for me every day. That was it. And they were willing to like destroy a kid's life in order to collect a couple $100 a day. Like that's
Mhm.
just how sick teachers and schools are. Like public schools, this like Prussian system that we have to create good little slaves for the state is just an absolute disaster. And like I hope it freaking goes, pretty soon. Like my little brother, step brother, he's like 12 or 13 now, and he's been on homeschool for like 3 or 4 years because the schools even here in Idaho, the schools are bad. My mom and his dad are older now, and they kind of know what to look for in a good school and a bad school, and they finally decided, like, the gender stuff, the queer stuff, like, all of this stuff, we just don't want a part of it, so they put him on homeschool. He's not the smartest kid, like, he's very average and just totally not the smartest kid at all. He's like 2 years ahead of where he would be if he was in regular school right now. And,
Yeah.
he's gonna graduate by the time he's 16 or 17 and be able to go and get an apprenticeship somewhere and be in the workforce and, be a productive member of society without all of that bullshit programming. He's
Yeah,
still
before they had that where you could just sit down in front of a computer and be educated like that, we went to alternative
yeah,
high schools.
yeah.
I attended an alternative high school for a short period of time, but yeah, I ultimately ended up graduating ahead of my class by completing through the alternative school. I finished my education ahead of my class and because I was done with it. I was bored with it. I'm in
Yeah.
the same space you are. I'm already too smart for these people. I was too smart going in, and I think a lot of people are, and they end
Mhm.
up getting dumbed down by the education system. Yeah, I'm sure we talked about it before. There's not. There's a lot of things that are wrong with the education system, but there are two of them that would fix it. That would fix all of the other problems. Not making it compulsory because it
Mhm.
is compulsory. You have to attend, even if you don't want to, even if they don't want you there, you have to attend. So it shouldn't be compulsory and it should be funded differently. It shouldn't be funded with the tax dollars of people who don't have people in school.
Yeah. I don't
They
have
shouldn't have to
kids. Why
pay
am I
for other
paying
people's
for it?
children and education. Just like that's the problem with all the public stuff when it comes to the money. But if you took those two things out of the schools, if you fund it differently and you tell the parents and you tell the children, look, this is a place to come and learn, this is a place that you want to be, and you give them they do so much better of it. I seem to remember being able to pick some things. I could have a couple of electives or something, but you, now my boy is a freshman and they have the whole 4 years planned out.
Yeah.
It's they got all 4 years planned out. They got all the courses that he's taking, and he's decided to do it. He picks every single one of them. He chooses the path that he wants to do. It's much more like college in that sense. And s maybe things are getting better in a lot of senses. But until you get rid of the compulsory nature of it, and until you find a different way to fund it, it's a failure. It's going to be a failure.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can be done about it. It can't be fixed. It's never going to get better. You throw all the money in the world at it. It's one of these things where if you're looking at a graph where they show the sort of money and what the expenditures are, here's the teacher. They keep throwing more money and more money over the years and years. And here's the teacher's pay and just sort of creeping up a little bit here. And here's the administration.
Mhm.
Whee! And so nothing's ever going to fix it.
Yeah. My high school had a great auto shop teacher, and we were allowed to, like, pick electives too, so I spent most of my time in high school in auto shop, and, like, my auto shop teacher had the only, like, metric that they really cared about for some fucking reason was how many kids we get to go to college. Like, if we get some kid to go to college and waste his time and money, then that's a win for us, even though
Yeah, I
it's
guess.
not
Yeah.
a win for the kid, it's a win for us because we did something for society or whatever the hell they're telling themselves. And my auto shop teacher ended up having like an enormously high rate of people going to trade schools. Some of them were going to automotive schools, some of them were going to lineman school, some were going to, just different tech schools, not traditional college in any way. Like he had a guy who graduated a couple years before me who like went to one of these technical schools and ended up working for NASCAR, and he would come in and talk to us from time to time and tell us about NASCAR and this and that. And you know what they did for that teacher? They fired him. They
Mm.
fucking fired him because we're not serving the best interest of the children if they're just going to technical schools and becoming mechanics and
And
linemen
yet
and
here we are
electricians. God
today in
forbid.
and here we are today, have a shortage
Yeah,
across the board of people. But man, I'm a dude. I'm a dude. I got tools
me too.
and my hands get greasy and I smash well, I tried to drill a hole through my thumb not too long ago. I get out there and I play and it just blows my mind. I just turned 53 a week or so ago here and it just blows my mind. I meet somebody in their 30s or something. They don't have any tools.
I know it.
They don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to fix anything. They nothing. They can't do anything for themselves, and that's where we're at in our society. We have a system that is short the technical skills needed for things like just simple things like
Yep.
plumbers and electricians and mechanics and things like that. And the skills just aren't there. People who make furniture, the skills just aren't there anymore.
Yep. I think that teachers and high school guidance counselors are some of the biggest villains in modern society because they are getting kids to go to these colleges that
Yeah.
are not in their best interest. It's like what I was talking with bartending earlier. You know if a kid is meant to go to college or not. They either have it or they don't. And like you said, dude, when I went to line school for working on power lines, they told us that like one of the scariest stats in America right now is that 50% of the workforce in the entire electrical industry is within 10 years of retirement. How the
Yeah.
fuck do we do that? How do we fix that? And luckily there are some kids who see
Well, you
through this
round up all
bullshit.
the Mexicans and hard workers and lock them in cages. That's what you do, apparently.
Dude, we just had this study in Idaho where they brought up all of these scientists and they did a study on the economy and immigration. And they came to the conclusion that if we went along with immigration policy in this country, that our entire economy would collapse. It's like, well, whose fault is that? You built an economy on cheap foreign labor, and now you're freaking out when the spigot gets turned off. Like that's your fault. That's not our fault. There's a bunch of, and what I always say too is like, there's a lot of jobs out there that Americans won't do. It's not that they won't do them because they don't want to do them. It's they won't do them for the price because the
Yeah.
price has gotten so fucking low that if they go ahead and do that job, they're not going to be able to feed their families. They're not going to be able to have a decent life. Like, you know, a lot of the economic stuff, I tend to agree, like, when Rand Paul talks about economics, like, usually he's right. Like, his dad was great on economics, and most of the time, he's right on economics, but I saw a clip from him a couple weeks ago that just drove me nuts. He was talking about the middle class in America, and he's like, "Well, people who say the middle class is dying are wrong. There's more middle class Americans today than there ever has been in the history of this country." And it's like, okay, well, there's always a median number in every large sets of numbers. There's always a median range. So like it's not about how many people are in that median range. It's about what the purchasing power of your dollars will do. How much money you're making while you're working versus how much that money will buy you. And the purchasing power of the middle class has fallen off a fucking cliff. And we're at a point now where the average age of a first-time home buyer in America is 41 years old. Like, that's not a healthy middle class. That's a failing middle class.
Yeah, that's a middle class that doesn't have options.
Yeah.
That is a middle class that isn't a middle class anymore. It's a lower class. And the thing about it is that there's no reason for it in a naturally run economy. There's no reason for it. The economy will run itself. These people will not be displaced, but they're displaced because of the debt. The
Yeah.
debt that's been created, the debt that's been created from things like student loans. That's part of it. The this idea that everybody has to go to college and everybody has to get a education. And you said these counselors and people are they are criminal.
Yeah.
They're as criminal as the bankers that gave out the loans. They're as criminal as the government that said, "Hey, we'll guarantee the loans if you give them out." I absolutely believe that they're all three co-conspirators, and they can all three go screw themselves when
Yep.
it comes to things like the debt that they claim that we still owe them for things like student loans. How about this? How about if you hadn't destroyed the education market? How about if you hadn't cornered it and made everybody do it your way and see it your way and we wouldn't be in this position. I know we wouldn't be in this position. We know this. We know this for a fact. You can see it because what happens is that things will go along just perfectly fine for a long period of time. You pick anything, I don't care what it
Mhm.
is. Pick anything in society, it goes along perfectly just fine for a period of time until somebody has a bad experience. And then that one bad experience turns into a political and social outcry. And then all of a sudden, there has to be a change with this thing. This thing has to be changed. It has to be forced to be changed. It can't be natural. It can't. This can never happen again. We can never allow this to happen again. And so what happens is that the government ultimately ends up propping up bad everything, whatever
Mhm.
it is. It doesn't. Again, it doesn't matter. Pick anything. It doesn't matter whether it's the economy, a piece of the economy, whether it's an individual and their health concerns, whatever, it doesn't matter because they fucked it all up. They screwed it all up. It's all destroyed and it's all for the benefit of them. It's all for their political power so that they can get the votes when somebody says, "Oh, I made bad decisions and it worked out badly for me. We need to regulate this market now so that nobody ever has it again." Well, shit, I can get votes for that. Hell, I better get in there and get me a law passed and make sure that these bad people in this economy over here can't do this anymore. These guys that do this thing over here, they can't do it that way anymore. And the problem with that is then you can't weed out bunk investments like that. You the money, things, all aspects of this investment of time and energy and money or whatever it is into this thing, whatever it is, again, this thing, it doesn't matter whatever it is all bunk investment. It's all based on a fallacy. It's all based on something that's not real. It's all based on, well, we were doing this for so long and now this has happened and now, well, this is why you need to pay attention to this. This is why you need to get involved in it. This is why you got to put your money in it. This is whatever it is. Again, that's the thing about it, is it's so far reaching. It's so
Mhm.
broad that it touches everything and they've infected and destroyed everything. If they're Pick a thing, pick anything that you would call a problem in the world, and I can show you how government either caused it or made it worse.
Yep. Oh, this is a perfect like Pam Bondi goes in front of Congress to answer questions about Epstein. And what does she
Mhm.
talk about? The Dow. but the Dow is so high right now. Why do we even care about these monsters who are raping kids at the behest of the federal government and Mossad? Like, that's not important. Look at the Dow. It's like, come on,
Yeah, I
lady.
kept
Like, what are
seeing
we
the
doing
memes. I
here?
didn't hear her actually say that,
Oh,
but then
she
I saw
did.
the memes, and so
Oh,
I knew what it was.
God.
That is
It's sick.
hilarious because the Dow is such a useless
It
economic marker,
is.
for one thing. It's everything that happens in the Dow means that everything good already happened. If you're seeing it on the Dow, that means all the good or
Yep.
all the bad or whatever it is, it already happened. It's too late. You missed it.
Yep.
You missed the boat. That's it. That's all there is to it. If you saw the numbers on the Dow, you're late. You missed it. And so it's useless to point at. It means nothing. These are the same people that for decades and decades have been collecting employment numbers and
Mhm.
and putting those out, and they put them out every month, and they say, oh, 150,000 new jobs were created, 150,000 people went to work this month, and then come the end of the year, and this has only recently happened within the last few years where people have started to pay attention to this
Yep.
and a lot closer, and it keeps making the news, and they did it again this last year, and it's funny how they try to cover it up even after the numbers come out.
Yep.
So last year they were off by like a million jobs
Yep.
over the course of the year, and they come back and they try to tell us that they weren't off by anything. They try to make it sound like they're not off by anything, but they already admitted that they were off by a million, and it just if they're that far, they're just making guesses, right? They're
Yep.
making guesses, and they've never guessed once correctly, not
And
once. And it's an interesting case. I had somebody on the show here a few weeks back. He was a economist, and I, I the specific reason I had him on the show was ultimately that question of what is the sort of percentage of government guessing and getting things right. And you'd think, oh well shit, the normal person guesses and gets like 50-50, you know? Not government, like 1 in 10. You know?
yeah.
It's never right. Everything that it backs, it's never right.
And here's the deal, they're used to controlling the narrative. You would put out these great job numbers, and if you're a Democrat, these job numbers would go on CNN and they'd say, "Oh, look at how great the economy is." If you're Republican, they'd go on Fox News and say, "Look at how great the economy is." And meanwhile, 6 months later, a year later, even a quarter later, the real numbers would come out. None of the major mainstream corporate news outlets would report on the real number. So it would end up in some obscure paper somewhere or some obscure fucking journal or something like that.
Yep,
And normal people would never fucking see it. But now
yep.
we've got the internet where normal people are paying attention to this shit. Where now it's not even a year later. A lot of times it's
But
a
they still
month
do it.
later, where they go, oh, we had, however many jobs. And then immediately on the internet, people are pointing out, nope, you're a fucking liar.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the crazy thing is that they still do it, and they still get
Yep.
away with it. That's what's real weird about it and it's because of this disconnect between the political in the political spectrum. It's that disconnect between the two of them. Because one is looking at one thing as a positive and the other one's looking at the same thing as a negative, because it doesn't bolster their political opinions and positions, and so they continue to do it. Yeah, so the numbers are done 3 times every year. They're done initially and in the month, and then they're adjusted by a quarter, and then they're by quarterly, approximately,
Mhm.
just keeping up with numbers, having to turn in numbers, having to put in information, and then at the end of the year as well, they reconcile the numbers again. And so if there are 12 months in a year and you're dealing in hundreds of thousands, you're dealing in numbers of hundreds of thousands, 150,000, 200, 225,000, something like that, somewhere up less than a quarter of a million or so, but more than 150,000, so somewhere into these numbers. And and if you have your sort of February and you say, well, 150,000 people have jobs, but then by the time we get to the end of the year and they've revised it and only 50,000 people have jobs, well, you do that 12 times a year, that's 1.2 million jobs you were off by.
And they set the metrics, right? They
Yeah,
set their own metrics and they
yeah,
change them all the time. Like during
because it's a
COVID,
lie.
during COVID, they changed the definition of what a recession is so they wouldn't have
Mhm.
to admit that we were in a recession, you know?
Yeah.
And like one of the things I try and like explain to my little brother is like, look, dude, the state is not as red and blue as people think it is. Like they argue about these obscure cultural issues, but in the end, they're always on board with the same things:
Mhm,
war and monetary policy. The
mhm.
whole game is to bomb as many people as you can to expand empire and to print as much money as you can to enrich your donors. That's the game.
Well, and that's the system because that's how the system stays alive. And so then what happens 250 years later? Um, it's collapsing. It's not doing great. You have the ratcheting effect that we've talked about before, that it never comes back down. That's the point of a ratchet, is once it goes up, it can't go back down. And so we have a ratcheting up of our political system. It never comes back down. So it never gets back to us. It never gets back to the individual. It's always about them. It's always about
Mhm.
the system. So that's what they do. But then make it worse. And you get somebody who is already narcissistic, who is already dangerous, who has already proven himself to be a violator of other people, whether it's their property or they themselves, and readily admits it as long as his name's not associated there. I'm sorry, am I talking about a person? I wouldn't be talking about an individual. That couldn't be. And so the guy's already of a mind like, fuck you, I'll do whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to become the president. What the fuck are you going to do about it?
Mhm.
And then somebody takes a pot shot at him. For real. Just imagine this. There's a lot of people running around say, "Oh, well, somebody shot this guy. It was fake. He let somebody shoot him in the ear or whatever the fuck they want to make up." Uh, let's just assume it's real. You're this guy. We know this guy. We've seen this guy. We know this. He has a history. This is the guy who said in what was it, Time Magazine or People Magazine or something like that, that if he was going to run for president, he'd run as a Republican because they're the dumbest fucking people on the planet. They'll fall for anything, that sort of thing. And so he did. So we know this guy. We know we've seen him on TV. We know his history. Half a dozen fucking failed companies and bankruptcies and stuff. But he just uses the force of government to steal property from people. I mean, the guy's a fucking piece of shit.
Mhm.
All right. So he's not going to be any better in a position of power. But what happens is one day when he's running and he thinks, "Oh man, I'm gonna get this thing. I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna do it right this time. I'm gonna do it my way." First time he's in there, he's just a maniacal douchebag, narcissist, everything that he is. But he's afraid. There's still a world out there. Now you take a shot at this guy, and suddenly he realizes he's not safe. Even as president, it doesn't matter. He's not safe. He's not safe from some psycho on the left, some fucking weirdo who thinks they're a woman, who believes that it's okay to touch children. They do whatever the hell it
Mhm.
is that these fucking. But because that's what they see. It doesn't matter who they really are. It doesn't matter who a liberal or a person on the left really is. What they see from the right is dudes in dresses and bitches with blue hair losing their fucking minds and screaming in people's faces. And well, okay, they're out there. But if you see that, you're going through and you realize I'm vying for the most powerful position in the world.
The history
I'm
of the
about to be
world.
the most powerful. I have been the most powerful man on the planet, and somebody could still kill me. Fuck this. I am looting this burg 6 ways from Sunday. You motherfuckers are getting it good. Bend over because here it comes. That's the man that you have in the office of president right now. A guy that was already bad, and then all of a sudden people tried to kill him. And now he don't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's going to do whatever the hell he thinks is right. He's going to push his power around, and he's robbing everybody. I mean, before he was a few months into his presidency, he had made millions of dollars schlocking this digital crap,
I know it. Yeah.
digital coins.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy. You
It
know,
is. It blows my mind that people can't even see it. I can't. if I try to say to somebody that somebody shot the president, they're like, "Oh, that was fake. He made that up. He did that himself." No, one of you leftist psychos got a hold of a gun, took a shot at some other psycho, and didn't fucking get him. You didn't get him. If you're gonna take a shot at the king, you gotta fucking kill him. And they didn't get him. And now, holy shit, Katie barred the door because this guy is he's on the loose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. Like, he ran on all this America First
Mhm.
propaganda, I would call it at this point, because, in his first term, they fucking they the neocons hated him when he was running in 2015.
Populist
Ben
president. Yeah.
Shapiro,
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, they all fucking hated him because he didn't want to go to war. And now you remember when he was running, when he said that, "Oh, I'll end the Ukraine and Russia war before I'm even in
Yeah,
office."
before he's even sworn in or some
Meanwhile,
shit. Yeah.
people are still getting thrown into the fucking meat grinder, and we're still funding that war. He just had Bibi Netanyahu back to the White House for the 50th fucking time or whatever in his second term, and he gave him a key to the country. You know how back in the day, if you saved a fucking kitten from a tree, here's the key to the city. He gave him a key to the country, and it's like, oh, like he didn't already have that? Like, what is
Mm.
this shit? Are you just rubbing our fucking noses in it?
Yeah, no, that's it, right? He already could do whatever the hell he wanted,
Yeah.
whenever the hell he wanted. Yeah.
And meanwhile, like, now Trump has turned on some of his biggest and best supporters, like Marjorie Taylor Greene's kind of, whatever. But she was at least America First. Thomas Massey is like the only good member of Congress at this point, and he's completely turned on Thomas Massey, calls him a rhino, which is the funniest fucking thing because,
It's
like,
the
Trump,
opposite. Yeah.
you are the rhino. Like,
Yeah, he's the rhino.
you're
Yeah.
just an authoritarian liberal pretending to be a Republican. Meanwhile, Thomas Massey is like the only true conservative in Congress, and he's the rhino because he won't vote for your bullshit and he wants the Epstein files to be released. It's
It's
fucking nuts.
everything upside down, flipped around, backwards. It's yeah. If you're if you're only paying attention to one side, you don't know nothing.
No,
You are so clueless. You are I I don't even know how people can do it. And I guess that's it, right? Is they don't. They don't do it. They just show up at the polls sometimes and throw a vote down for whatever they think is on their side and it just gets worse and they don't it never it never gets any better. That's it's crazy.
nobody's on our side.
We've made
Nobody's
every
on our
excuse,
side. It's
come up
it's
with every reason,
ridiculous.
every tool, every dollar, and it hasn't fixed anything.
No.
Nothing.
No, it's not going to get any better. This is one of these things where when I was in the hospital after I got electrocuted working on power lines, it got to a point where like you had to cut the arm off. Otherwise, the necrosis was going to spread to my entire fucking body and I was going to die. So you have to get
Right.
rid of it. You have to cut it out and you have to get rid of it. And all of these fucking reformists who are running as Republicans, are just part of the game because like at this point the entire fucking thing is rotten. My buddy sent me an interview of RFK on Theo Vaughn the other day and I watched it and it's like, yeah, okay, he's doing some good things. But the real problem is as soon as he gets out and some other fucking shill for corporate America gets back in there, he's just going to undo everything he's done with a swipe of a pen. It's going to go
Yep.
right back to normal. Like
Yep.
you have to get rid of these institutions if you want actual change.
Yeah.
Like if you want companies to be producing better food so Americans aren't poisoned every day, get rid of the HHS, get rid of the FDA so smaller companies can come in and produce actual good foods. Make it possible for a fucking farm. Like I have my neighbor is a cattle rancher. He can't sell me a cow if he wanted to
Mhm.
because if he gets caught selling me a cow, he loses everything. Why is it that I don't have the ability to decide where I buy my meat from? It makes no sense whatsoever. Like he has lost all of his property, almost all of his property, and most of his cattle because of inflation. It's a fucking disaster. And like if you got rid of these institutions, I could go and buy a cow from him. Prices would adjust. He could sell it to me cheaper than the grocery store could because he doesn't have to pay for all the overhead and all the transport and all that bullshit. Like prices would adjust. The quality of food would adjust. If you've got nasty potato chips out there, some guy can go, "Hey, look, I can make potato chips in my garage right now." And I could scale up from a garage to a warehouse to a big warehouse, but all the regulations and all the rules and all the red tape is going to make it absolutely impossible for me to do that. So, like, get rid of these institutions, give us some actual choice, let us have a price discovery within the market, and like weed out the good from the bad.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they would let that happen, but
They won't. The whole
they
point of
won't.
the FDA and the all these, institutions is to entrench power within these corporate monopolies.
Yeah.
That's the game. You can go ahead and you do XYZ for us, and you've got a nice cushy executive job or a seat on our board when you get out of office.
It's like a bunch of little children playing fort
Yeah,
in the yard, and
cops and
they
robbers.
yeah, and customer yeah, they take all this stuff and they build all it up and they say, "Oh, well, I shot you, you're dead," and they make up all the rules. You
Yeah,
know how it is when you
make up
play.
as they go.
"No, you didn't get me, you missed me, you
Yeah.
can't do that, you can't have more powers than I have, you can't," that this is exactly what's going on in our government, and it leads to the same thing. People frustrated at the end of the day, and everybody takes their ball and goes home. Except that we're kind of locked into this. We're all stuck. If we could take our ball and go home, so many of us would. We'd pack it in. We'd say goodbye to all of this. But they don't know how. They don't. And how can you when they've got everything? They captured everything. You can't do anything without their permission.
I think every America First Republican that's fed up with the way things are going right now should not vote in the next
Oh
election,
yeah.
regardless of who's in there. Like, I don't know
Yep.
what JD Vance is going to run on. He's going to be put in the exact same position that Kamala Harris was in her last election, where it's like, I can't rebuke Trump and say that he did a bad job because people will turn on me. And so what? I'm just going to run on the same exact thing that Trump did. And, you know, even if he comes out and says, okay, well, I'm actually going to release the Epstein files, there's a good portion of the population that goes, I don't believe you. I think you're a liar, just like the last guy. So I think like voting is so important. We got to have more people voting and just don't fucking vote. Just
Don't
go and
vote.
let the Democrat, just let Gavin Newsom destroy JD Vance. Teach these people a lesson. If you want to get elected, you're going to have to throw us some red meat. We know for, like me and you know that they're not going to throw us anything significant, but at least push policy in a
Play the
decent
game at
direction for
least.
once.
Yeah. Can we at least pretend like they don't have any power if there's nobody to laud power over? If there are none of us left, who is the power for? Who are they impressing themselves?
Like the key tenet to anarchism is all of this shit is fake. All
Yeah.
of this government bullshit is fake. It
It's all
exists
paper.
in the minds of human beings and nowhere else. Paper, like this stuff is all fake. And we have the power in this country. We've just given it up because we want to, have it easy and watch
Well, it makes
football.
sense to not I'd say it a lot. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I know it's a weird saying, but I think it makes the point really clear that there's a reason that certain things were done the way they were and why certain language has been used in the sort of framing of what this nation would be and who people are and what rights are supposed to be and things. None of that is carried over. None of that exists anymore. It was and that was the problem with it to begin with, is that you can't that there was no way to do it. You could pretend like you were setting up a system, but if you're giving up power, then that system is eventually going to take everything. It's going to take all the
Mhm.
power. They tried to warn the framers tried to warn them about that when they're setting up this nation. They tried to warn them if they did things the wrong way that it wasn't going to work. It was just going to end up like everything else. And
A
it may
republic
have
if you
taken a
can
little
keep it,
longer,
you know?
but we're just still as bad off as every other shitty third world country,
Yeah.
basically.
A republic if you can keep it. We
If you
didn't
can
keep
keep
it.
it,
We
right?
did
We
not
couldn't keep
fucking
it.
keep
No.
it. We couldn't
And
keep
and
it.
you could never keep it. That
No.
was the thing
That's the
about it.
that's the
Yeah.
whole like point
Yeah.
of centralized power. As centralized power grows, it gets more powerful. It's this big leviathan. And what do they call those things where you got multiple heads and you got to cut off the right head? Like there's so many heads
The
at this
Hydra.
the Hydra. There's so many
Yeah.
heads to the Hydra right now that you have no fucking clue which head to cut off.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter because it stays alive when with all the other. You got to cut off all the heads. It's
Yeah.
what you were saying earlier about you actually have to make some kind of change if you want to see some sort of change. There's been
Mhm.
no change. Nothing has changed. Not a single thing has changed. And I keep just trying to point this out to people and say, "What are you talking about? What changed? Well, what do you mean? Oh, well, there's a new president and they have new policies and so
What new
so, but
policies?
the economics is still the same. It's the
Yeah.
same dollar. It's the same welfare system. We talked about this back before Trump was elected, right? Because we
Mhm.
talked about the what the Project 2025 thing. So I
Yeah.
read through the thing. I actually read the document and said, "Oh, it's just the usual Republican
Mhm.
wish list." They're saying the same thing that everybody says when they say they're going to get empowered. They all say the same thing. I'm going to take this over here and I'm going to move it over here and I'm going to make sure everybody's loyal to us as it, we got to be America first, whatever it is. We just make sure everybody's on the same team, basically. And we're going to move this over here. We're going to move this over here and we'll reshuffle this around and we're going to restructure this. But what none of, and then I went over this over and over and over again. Every time I talked about it, I said, the one thing that they never said is they're never going to cut anything. They're
Dude,
never going
I
to change anything. They're never going to stop spending the damn money.
I did a word search on Project 2025 for abolish. It didn't come up more than a couple times, and it was like, okay, they used it, but they're not actually abolishing anything. Like you said, they're just
No, no,
moving
no. It's
power
more
from
about
one area
policy.
to
It's about
another and
changing
making it
policy.
bigger. Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
abolishing shit. It's
yeah.
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all very funny, and it would be laughable if you were to sit back and watch it as a movie. It'd be
Yeah.
Keystone Cops laughable bullshit. But when you're living it, it's just danger. It's danger of every turn because it gets worse. It doesn't just get worse for us out here. The economy, the numbers, things like that. It gets worse out here across the board because as bad as it is for me, how bad is it for everybody else who's completely fucking clueless, completely useless, doesn't want to do shit, doesn't have any drive or motivation to do anything to raise above their station. They're not even capable of it. These it's just going to get so much worse because there's nothing to ever stop it from getting worse. We know they're not going to do anything about it in the political system, and we can't do anything about it here. And the reason we can't do anything about it here is exactly what I was saying is that so many people believe, and I agree, that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we've got dirty bathwater
Yeah. The
and
baby's
and we
gonna
got a
drown.
bad baby. Maybe we got to start over at some point. If you
Yeah.
go back and you look at it and you say none of it worked from the beginning, then it doesn't matter. No fix along the way, no tweaking of this, no repairing of that, no changing of this attitude, no changing of that law or position is going to change the direction of things. You have to stop. You have to start. You got to triage.
Yeah. Gotta cut the arm off at some point, right? So this
We
is a
know this
small
metaphor.
this is yeah, I know this metaphor very
You
well.
know this metaphor very well.
This is a small anecdote, but I think it's like a very interesting microcosm for like what we're dealing with
Absolutely.
on a large scale. So like there's this family, I don't remember what state they're in, but they're somewhere back east, and their kids are into riding dirt bikes. So they've got some land on their property. They build a track. And pretty soon they're like, oh, well, let's have the family friends over to ride on the track. And at some point, there's like, well, we've got a really good track and we've got a lot of people that want to ride out here. So we're going to create a business and make it a training facility where people can come, they can camp out on the track, they can live here, they can train, and everybody can have a great time. Well, some fucking asshole that is like the city manager of the city got a call from one of their neighbors who is sick of the noise. This neighbor has lived there for less time than the people have had the motorcycle track. He moved into an area with a fucking motorcycle
Where
track,
it was
and
already
now
at?
he's complaining. They got an injunction to shut down the track, and they sent cops out there to arrest people if they ride. This And the guy who's the city manager is like 22 years old. He's never had a real job in his entire fucking life. He's fresh out of college, going into government as a career, which should
What a
never
scumbag.
happen. Government should be something that you do when you're 50 or 60 and you've got free time to give back to the community that's given you a good life and you want to protect them from the, forces of power that
Brashness
is
of
going to
young
destroy them and
morons.
steal their. So this 22-year-old guy is willing to take away things, the thing that children love most on their own private property for the sake of some fucking Karen who doesn't like the noise,
Who knew the noise was there to begin with?
who
That's the
knew
thing
the
that gets
noise.
me. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's the same argument that you get from the people that are having a problem with the immigration and the migrant workers and things. It's the exact same argument that why you come here and try to change things and turn them into the same shithole you just came from. And I get that argument. I understand that argument, but again, the failure is with the system. Even
Yep.
with like the migrants, the immigrant workers, they don't come here for no reason. They come and if the argument is that they come here because of welfare or because they can vote and participate in the system, well, you're supposed to be able to. So why is that necessarily a problem? Oh, because they don't hold the same views and
Mhm.
same values, and so now you don't want them to vote. Well, there's already a process for that. It's called, I don't know, it's one of those amendments.
Yeah.
One of those amendments is very clear, clearly states that only citizens can vote. So,
Yeah.
and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Voting is something that is a privilege for citizens. So
And
it
the
makes
game
sense.
is they don't really care if the immigrants vote or not. What they want to do is pack them into areas where they can change the electoral
Where they can
makeup.
change the
So
electoral
we can
map so that
we can
yes, that's
yep,
it
we can go
exactly,
and
and
do a
so it's not
census and
about
say,
them
"Oh,
voting, it's
this
about a
area gets another representative in
yeah,
Congress." That's the
yes, and
game,
yes,
you
yeah.
know?
So it's not about these immigrants, it's not about the problems with them.
It's a big game of
It's the
chess.
system that allows it to happen. It's the system that says, "Hey, if you bring a bunch of people in here, whether they vote or not, but they can constitute a voting block, you can rearrange things." That whole idea the whole idea of rearranging voting blocks and stuff, that to me just blows my mind.
Yeah.
That whole idea that the Republicans can get into office in a town, it could just be your town, and they can restructure the voting system around it to where they try to hold power.
Mhm.
How what?
Yeah. And like I don't like that we have a massive immigration problem and they're stealing jobs
Nobody
from
does.
Americans and like, but what are you gonna do about it? Like, look at
Well,
what
you certainly don't take people's rights away, spend a bunch more money violating people on the street to not solve the goddamn problem.
and you're making this massive federal police force where they're offering people $50,000
That's
for a
it.
sign-on, and like that's the real game is like let's make this massive federal police force. Like I brought up Rand Paul earlier, and he
You
has a
got it.
solution to this, which I don't love, but I don't hate it either. And like I think the immigrants wouldn't like it either. So it's just like a non-zero sum game where kind of everybody's going to be unhappy with this compromise, but it might be the best way to go. His idea is if you're already here, if you break the law, you go. But if you're here and you work and you contribute, you can stay, but you're not a citizen. You can't vote.
Yeah. I don't care about voting. I don't care about citizenship. I don't care about these things, but I get them.
Mhm.
I understand them. And I'm not the one that gets to decide for everybody else, for the 350 other million people in America. It's not up for me to decide whether or not they should have closed borders. I'm no more in a position to tell them that the borders have to be open than I am to tell them that they have to be closed. It's not my fucking property.
Yeah. And I think we're both on the same, you know, you've got Texas landowners that have border on their fucking property. And
Let
that's like,
Texas landowners solve the problem.
yep, let them have at it. If somebody comes onto
Yeah,
my property, I'm going to fucking
shoot
shoot
the
them.
motherfucker.
All
End of
borders should be
story. No
private.
more
Like, this
fucking
is
people
crazy.
sneaking across the line.
Yeah, and if you're one of these bleeding heart liberals who just loves to have immigrants come over because we're saving them from horrible living conditions and
Mm,
blah 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 blah, well, you can sponsor them. And if
yeah,
they come over, they can live in your fucking house. They
yeah.
can do, do your lawn and whatever they want. And if they get in trouble, it's on you.
Maybe
You
it's
have
on
to get
you.
in
Yeah.
trouble as well. Like, this is
Yeah.
fucking
I,
stupid.
you know, it's funny. It's funny being in the system, being here, being in it all, and still being outside of it and just existing outside of it all because you can look at things so much more objectively. It's like I've been using AI to do some programming here lately. I've been a code writer for 40 years. And so I started using AI here to help me with it. And it gives me a new perspective. You know what
Mhm.
I get to do as the guy who tells a machine what to do? To produce something for me, I get to sit back and I get to look at the bigger picture and I get to look at it from every angle. And I don't have to think, how do I solve problems? I just have to think, this is what I need done. You figure out how to do it, machine, and I'll tell you how to do it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I I'm I'm having fun um being inside and outside the system at the same time, understanding that, yeah, of course, you can't have a, a nice run, healthy system with people just pouring in over your borders. But okay, so that's just one problem. How do you solve that
Yes.
problem? I think we know how you solve that problem. You stop forcing American values on other countries. You stop providing the welfare systems. You stop allowing restructuring of our political system, and you start counting individual votes. These are the only ways to solve this thing in their system. I know how to solve it outside of their system. You burn the shit down,
Yeah.
and any of the motherfuckers who want to try to push you through it and put you through it, you guillotine their asses, and that's the end of that shit. But we're not at that point. We're never going to be at that point. So then, if you had to look at what are you going to do within the system? Well, if you have the system, how about it just work for the people? How about it be what you say it is? That's the thing that blows my mind so much about all of it, especially with what we're going through now with the political right. You cocksuckers have been just gung ho all this time about gun rights and about individualism and about small government, about keeping them out of your home, and about militarized police force, this national militarized police force. Never wanted anything like that, and right now they're just bowing down, sucking that shit in. They're just taking it in, and that to me is you're not even pretending anymore to pay lip service to the values that created this system. It is it's every man for himself at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's a major problem in right wing America right now. They kind of think that, hey, silver bullet, we get rid of all of the immigrants, we get rid of all the illegal immigration, and we're going right back to 1950s America again. And like, they're missing the forest for the trees. Just because you get rid of the immigration problem does not mean that our economic problems just all of a sudden get better overnight. It doesn't mean
Why
that the
would they?
government's going to stop printing money and putting us, we're at like
Yeah.
what, $40 trillion in debt right now that they're never going to pay back. We're also at a point, like, there was an interesting tidbit from Rubio the other day where he was talking about how essentially the dollar is not going to be the world reserve currency in the next 10 years because we've destroyed the dollar,
Yeah,
and
it has
all
no
of these
value.
other countries are deciding, hey, we want to trade in Chinese money or Russian money or maybe cryptocurrency or gold or whatever it is. But like, the dollar itself is on a steep decline that is just not going to stop. Doesn't matter what you do with immigration. Like, our economic problems are so bad right now that there's no single fix to it. There's no,
Yeah.
and also this other, ridiculous idea from right-wing America that if we just get the good people in charge, then the government will go back to being a force for good
Yeah,
again.
no.
We just have
That's
to
how you end
elect the
up with a
good people.
dictatorship.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed. We're headed to a dictatorship because what you were talking about earlier with Kennedy and all the changes that he's made, and pick any one of them, any of the things that are going on in the federal government under Republican leadership. They're doing this with the mind that these things are important, but the only way that they can keep them in place is to keep power.
Yeah. Dude, when I was in college, like all of the books that I was reading about like climate change was one of I was a business major and I didn't pay to go to college. Like I got paid to go as like a retraining thing after I got hurt. And
Nice.
like I could go into a whole thing about that. But anyways, like the books were written while Trump was in his first term. And by the time I'm reading the books, he's out of office and Biden is in. And like one of the things the books are complaining about is like industry capture. He's putting people into the EPA that are against climate change and he's destroying policy and environmentalism is going to die and blah blah blah. By the time I'm reading these books, everything that he had done had been done away with the swipe of a pen. It was all mute. It was a moot point. Like there none of it mattered anymore. And it's like, okay, so what are you just going to write new books again? Like it's so dumb to think that anything that they're doing is going to be a lasting change
Yeah.
because they're just going to go back to the way things were as soon as another Democrat gets back into
Except that
office
it
again.
doesn't. That's the thing about it, is it doesn't go back. That's the ratcheting. They switch it back, but government's bigger. Government's more powerful. They look for another law or another program or another thing to help try to keep themselves in place and in power. They've reorganized another district. They've done whatever it is to try to keep themselves in power. That's all they're doing right now. That's all they've been running around doing for the last year, trying to figure out how they're going to snake more votes and steal this thing away from them. And if that's the best that we have, what that's tit for tat. That's the best we got. That's it. That's all our government's ever going to be, is tit for tat, right wing versus left wing, while the rest of us struggle out here to try to make this shit work while these motherfuckers rob us. I think that's all it's ever been. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's oh man. Like I could talk to you all day. Like
yeah, I
always.
know
This
we
was
could, but
great.
I'm
We could
sure I've got things to do. You
yeah,
probably got
I'm
to go
sure
to
you do.
work or
I
something, don't
never
you?
have shit to do, so it's always good for me to go. But
No,
I want to
okay.
get you out of here because
I
we
have
could we
family,
could
so
go.
I
Yeah, you
always
have a
have
family, you
something
have
to
a
do.
job, you have a life. Like we don't need to be
I don't
screaming
have a
about
job.
things.
I own a comic book shop. That's
That's a
not a
good
job.
point. That's a good point.
In fact, I don't even get paid.
Hey, it's at least you're happy and you're having fun doing what you
Hell yeah,
love,
I
you
am.
know? Yeah. Anyways, all right. And
All right, brother.
like we said earlier, I didn't get to any of my notes, which is great because I had them as a backup just in case, but I had a feeling we wouldn't get to them, so that's fine.
Yeah, no, we don't have any problem talking about
No,
anything. But
no,
if you ever
no.
want to talk about something specific, you always let me know. I can try to
Nah,
keep my attention on one thing.
I always like
Squirrel.
just letting it rip, you know? I like to let it rip. That's always the best way to go, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I just love chatting with you, man. It's
Yep.
always great
Me
chat with you.
too. It's always great. All right, man. Take care.
All right,
Let's
brother.
call it here.